Well, good morning. Good morning. I'll tell you what, we got to put on that happy face because we are all happy people. Yeah, right. Aren't you? Hey, I'll tell you what. Let's say that we're getting ready for church. Okay. And remember, you can't come to church with a sad face, okay? So what you got to do is go like this. And you come in, how is everything? Oh, it's so great. And you sing, try not to get worried, try not to turn on to problems that upset you. Ah, don't you know everything's all right? Yes, everything's all right. And we want you to sleep well tonight. Where are we going for lunch after church? La da da, la da da, la da da. Yeah, right. But ain't it a fact? Because we are not supposed to have any problems when we come to church. We're supposed to go to the service, and then we're supposed to go out for lunch and laugh and just have a good old time. Whatever happened to the thing where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep? And each and every one of us has a heavy. When you get into the Word of God, it will lift your spirit and you'll be able to rejoice again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to blink out again, and then I'll give you the scriptures. Get some paper. An extra pen here if you need it. And get your Bible. But what you do, as you can see here, that's from before. I write down the scriptures and go from there. Okay. And then, so I'm going to blink out here for a bit, and you get your pen, your crayons, and your pencils, and we'll go from there because I'll be right back. Hang on. Ah, are you ready for what's coming? Connie. This Commandant Connie. Well, it's on its way. So the verses we are going through today, John 18:19 to 27. Matthew 26:59 to 68. Mark 14:55 to 65. Luke 22:63 to 71. Ooh, Lamentations 3:30. Matthew 26, verse 3. Matthew 26, verses 71 to 75. Mark 14, 69 to 72. If you write them down, kind of like that, when you get, just abbreviate them. Luke 22:58 to 62. Back to John 13:38. Oh, Okay, what have we got here? You know, it is very peaceful and quiet down here. And secure. So let's get started, because remember, we have to put on that happy face. Oh boy, you ever have a white cat with a black keyboard? Anyways, John, chapter by chapter, verse by verse, reference by reference, John 18, verses 19 to 27. The high priest then asked Jesus about his disciples and his doctrine. Jesus answered to him, I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where the Jews always met. And in secret I have said nothing. Why do you ask me? Why don't you ask those who heard me what I said? Indeed, they know what I said. And when he had said these things, one of the officers who stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, Do you answer the high priest like that? Jesus answered, If I had spoken evil, bear witness of that evil. But if well, why do you strike me? Then Ananias sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter stood and warmed himself. Therefore they said to him, Are you not also one of his disciples? And he denied it and says, I am not. One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of him whose ear Peter cut off, said, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter denied it again, and immediately the rooster crowed. Okay. So from verses 19 to 24, what we read here, let's look at Matthew 26, 59, 68. Another witness. Remember, a fact is established by 2 or 3 witnesses. Okay, so we'll go to Matthew 26, 59 to 68. Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death. But they found none. Even though many false witnesses came forward, they found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward and said, This fellow said, I'm able to destroy the temple of God and build it in 3 days. And the high priest arose and asked him, Do you answer nothing? What is these things these men have testified against you? But Jesus kept silent. And the high priest answered and said to him, I put you under an oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Jesus said to him, It is as you said. Nevertheless, I'll say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and the coming on the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest, he ripped his clothes and said, He has spoken blasphemy. What further need do we have of witnesses? Look, now you have heard it. You've heard his blasphemy. What do you think? Oh, what do you think? They answered him, He is deserving of death. Then they spat in his face and beat him, and others struck him with the palm of their hands, saying, Prophesy to us, Christ. Who struck you? Now, we call over to Mark for his account. Never mind. Mark 14, 55 to 65. Now the chief priests and the council sought testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but they found none, for many bore false witnesses against him, but their testimony just didn't agree. Then some rose up from bore false witness against him, saying, we heard him say, I will destroy this temple made with hands and rebuild it in 3 days. I will build another made without hands, but not even them testimonies did agree. Okay. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus, said, do you answer nothing? What is this these men testify against you? But he kept silent and answered nothing. Are you anxious to get to when he's before Pilate? I was just thinking that. Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you? But he kept silent and answered nothing. Again, the high priest asked him, saying to him, are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed? Jesus says, I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. Woo. Are we longing for that day? Are we longing for that day when we don't have to put on a happy face? Are we longing for that day when we see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory? Then the high priest tore his clothes and said, what further need do we have a witness? Sorry. Just give me a second. Okay. The high priest tore his clothes and said, what further need do we have of witness? You have heard his blasphemy. Well, what do you think? And they all condemned him to be deserving of death. Then some spit on him and to blindfold him, to beat him and say, prophesy. And the offers struck him with the palms of their hands. Well, let's go over to Luke 22, verse 63 to 71. Now the men who held Jesus mocked him and beat him, and having blindfolded him, they struck him on the face and asked, saying, prophesy, who is the one who struck you? And many other things they blasphemously spoke of him. As soon as it was day, the elders of the people and both the chief priests and scribes came together and led him into the council, saying, if you are the Christ, tell us. I got a seat. All right, we're just fixing up the script here. If you are the Christ, tell us. But he said to them, if I tell you, you will by no means believe me. And if I also ask you, you will by no means answer me or let me go. Hereafter the Son of Man will sit on the right hand of God in power. Then they all said to him, are you the Son of God? And he said to them, you rightly say that I am. And they said, what further testimony do we need? For we have heard it ourselves from his own mouth yet. Going over, now let's kind of zero in here and go over John 18:22 and just kind of, zero in on that. John 18:22, when he had said these things, one of the officers who stood by struck Jesus with the palm of his hand, saying, do you answer the high priest like that? I'll tell you what, these guys, we'll hear reference then to Lamentations 3:30. How about that one? You got to, I'll say it again. You read the book of Daniel yet? You read the book of Isaiah? What about the book of Ezekiel? And what about the book of Lamentations? Well, I'll tell you, the verse of the day doesn't cut it. If I lived on the verse of the day, I'd have not made it this far. It's a fact, a serious fact. Lamentation 3:30, let him give his cheek to the one who strikes him and be full of reproach. Well, let's go over John 18:24. Then Ananias sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. We are referenced from there over to Matthew 26:3. Then the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people assembled at the place of the high priest, who is called Caiaphas. Well, now, let's go over some other verses further down. Let's go over John 18:25 to 27 again. Now, this is Peter's denial. Wow. That is a very detailed failure of Peter that is mentioned in all of the Gospels. But if we read later on, we will see also in all of the Gospels the restoration of Peter. So don't lose heart about where you're at today. Are you at where I'm at? Put on the sacrifice of praise for the spirit of heaviness and worship the Lord. John 18:25 to 27. Now Simon Peter stood and warned himself. Therefore they said to him, are you not one of his disciples? And he says, I am not. I'll tell you, one of the chief servants of the high priest, a relative whose ear Peter cut off, said, did I not see you in the garden with him? Peter denied it again, and immediately the rooster crowed. And from here, a reference over to Matthew 26:71 and 75, another witness. And when he had gone out into the gateway, another girl saw him and said to them, or to those two who were with him, this fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth. But he denied with an oath, I do not know the man. Will the time come for me or for you when we say, I do not know the man? We can say in a moment of sheer weakness, I do not know the man. Can you think of a more agonizing thought to hear him say, away from me, I never knew you? Wow. A little later, those who stood by came and said to Peter, surely you are also one of them, for your speech betrays you. Then he began to curse and swear. Curse means what we call swearing, and swear means saying by oath, right? Something like that. I do not know the man. And also, if we go over to Mark, the same witness, all of these other people were a witness to that. Not just the accusers, but his brothers in the Lord were a witness. So we go to Mark 14:69 to 17. And the servant girl saw him again and began to say to those who stood by him, this was one of them. But he denied it again. And a little later, those who stood by said to Peter again, "Surely you're one of them, for you're a Galilean, and your speech shows it." Then he began to swear and curse. "I do not know the man of whom you speak." A second time the rooster crowed. Then Peter called to mind the words of Jesus that he had said to him, "Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." I just got to read that. Red, as in making it the color red, because that was Jesus speaking that, and then saving the document. Okay? We just, go along, correct the script as we go along here. And the script is the scriptures, which is the truth. Okay? And when he thought about it, he wept. Well, we can't leave Luke out here. For some reason, Luke gets mentioned last, but let's go to Luke. Luke 22:58-62. A little while, another saw him and said, "You're also one of them." But Peter says, "I am not." Man, I'm telling you, I am not. Then after about an hour had passed, another confidently affirming, saying, "Surely this fellow was also with them, for he is a Galilean." But Peter said, "Man, I do not know what you are saying." Immediately, while he was still speaking, the rooster crowed. Now here's something. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. In Luke's account here. How are you? How am I? When the Lord turns his face and looks at us. Will we still put on that happy smile? We can say everything's okay, everything's all right, and I want to sleep well tonight before men. But God knows our heart, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing because he knows and feels and understands the deep, dark things that you are going through. And you don't have to put on a facade. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the words of the Lord, how he said to him, "Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." So Peter went out and wept bitterly. John 18:27, Peter then denied him again, and immediately a rooster crowed. Well, if Peter back here remembered what the Lord had said to them, we should go back and find out where the Lord said that. So if you look at Matthew 26:4, Jesus said to him, "Assuredly I say to you that this night before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times." And we'll go back even in John here again. John 13:38, Jesus answered him, "Would you lay down your life for my name's sake? Most assuredly I say to you that the rooster shall not crow till you have denied me 3 times. So with that, we'll end this, but Lord willing, I will. No, that's not the way you say it. No, you gotta say, I'll be back. All right? Remember, put on a happy face